A diehard Tesla fan, 1 million subscribers, years of FSD videos, just flew to China and said a Chinese car's autopilot is better. That's not a headline I expected to be reading this week. Let me tell you why this particular test actually matters. Because I know what you're thinking, another Chinese influencer hyping a Chinese car. That's not what happened here. Rich Rebuilds is an American YouTuber with over 1 million subscribers who built his whole brand on taking Teslas apart. Literally. He became famous for disassembling them, and he has spent years driving and critiquing Tesla's full self-driving system on American roads. This is not someone with an agenda to make Tesla look bad. 5 years ago, he drove an earlier Xpeng P7 and called it a Tesla killer, which at the time felt like a stretch, honestly. But now he came back to China specifically to rerun that comparison with fresh eyes and a much more capable system on both sides. I think the credibility of the tester is half the story here. When a Tesla superfan books a flight to Shanghai to run this test, you pay attention. So here's what the test actually showed. Rich ran both systems on the same stretches of Chinese city roads, the kind of environment that is genuinely brutal for any autonomy stack. Scooters cutting across lanes, pedestrians stepping off curbs mid-block, delivery trucks double-parked, and the general organized chaos that Chinese urban traffic is famous for. By his count, Tesla FSD required significantly more driver interventions than Xpeng's second-generation VLA system over comparable distances. His words, not mine, were essentially that FSD felt stressed and reactive in that environment, while VLA felt composed. Now I want to be careful here. I haven't independently verified the exact intervention numbers from his video, and one tester on one day is not a controlled scientific study. I'd argue that caveat matters. But the directional finding lines up with something Xpeng has been publishing internally. Since the second-gen VLA rollout, interventions per 100 kilometers dropped by roughly 26% compared to the previous version. That's a fleet-wide number across real customers, not a demo. The system also crossed 50% autonomous driving mile penetration, meaning more than half of all kilometers driven by P7 owners are now being handled by VLA without the driver touching anything. For context, Tesla has never publicly released a comparable penetration figure. I think that silence is telling. And here is the detail that genuinely surprised me. The P7 does all of this without LiDAR. Pure vision, same philosophical bet Tesla made, but apparently executing better in dense urban China right now. One road test is an anecdote. Fleet data is an argument. In the first month after Xpeng pushed the second-gen VLA update to P7 owners, the cumulative autonomous kilometers logged hit 84.46 million. One single vehicle racked up 5,441 kilometers driven entirely under VLA. That's roughly London to Kabul without the driver steering. Daily active usage of the AI driving system hit 93% during the Golden Week holiday, which is the worst possible stress test because every Chinese driver and their extended family is on the road simultaneously. I'll be honest. I was skeptical of Xpeng's autonomy ambitions about 18 months ago. I thought they were overpromising on a timeline that NIO and BYD would probably beat them to. I was wrong about the competitive pressure from within China, but I was also wrong to underestimate how fast Xpeng specifically would iterate. The jump from their first-gen system to VLA 2.0 in terms of intervention rate is the kind of improvement curve that reminds me of what Tesla's FSD went from version 10 to version 12. Except Xpeng did it in a market that is arguably harder to navigate than anything in the United States. Now compare that to a Waymo or a Cruise, both of which needed LiDAR, HD maps, and geofence cities to reach similar confidence levels. Xpeng is doing this in ungated, unmapped urban China. I'd argue that is a harder problem solved with a leaner sensor suite, and the industry should be paying closer attention. Here's where I land on this. Xpeng's VLA 2.0 appears to be genuinely world-class for urban autonomy and high-density, unpredictable traffic. Not good for a Chinese brand. Just good. Full stop. Rich Rebuilds flying to China and saying so publicly is the kind of third-party validation that no press release can buy. Does that mean you should import a P7 to Los Angeles? No. The system is tuned for Chinese road rules, Chinese map data, and Chinese driving culture. FSD probably still has an edge in American suburban environments where it has years of training data. But I think the more important question is this. Tesla has always sold FSD as a global, general-purpose intelligence. If it underperforms in the world's largest car market on the world's most complex roads, that is a product gap, not a localization footnote. Tesla needs a China-specific training push, or it risks ceding the autonomy narrative entirely in a market where autonomy is becoming a primary purchase reason, not a premium add-on. The Xpeng P7 starts well below what a comparable Tesla Model 3 costs in China. If the driving system is now arguably better in local conditions, price and performance are both pointing the same direction. That is a problem for Tesla, and I don't think they've fully acknowledged it yet. Tell me in the comments, do you think Tesla can close this gap with a software update, or does Xpeng now have a structural lead in Chinese urban autonomy? If you want to see more head-to-head tests where I actually take a position instead of sitting on the fence, subscribe and drop a comment below. Can Tesla fix this with software alone, or has Xpeng genuinely pulled ahead in urban autonomy? I read every reply.